Today we're going over a full overview of getting started with and programming your Quad Cortex. This video is meant for those who just got a Quad Cortex, or if you are interested in getting a Quad Cortex and you want to see how it works, or even if you've had your Quad Cortex for a while. I'm going to go over quite a few features in here that you might not be aware of, because the Quad Cortex is actually very powerful. You can use the timestamps on the screen or down below if there's a specific topic that you're interested in. However, if you're new to Quad Cortex, I do recommend watching from the beginning. Just FYI, this isn't a video about really dialing in your tone or making your tone sound better. I'm going to show you how to use the Quad Cortex, and then you can dial it in how you want it to. In this video, I'm mostly focusing on here are the features that the Quad Cortex is capable of, so you know how to use it. I do want to say many thanks to Sweetwater for sponsoring this video. And if you are interested in the Quad Cortex, the Nano Cortex, any of the accessories, which I'll go over towards the end of the video, you can check out the Sweetwater links down below in the description or use the QR code on your screen. But many thanks to Sweetwater for sponsoring this video. That's enough of the intro. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and let's go ahead and get started. So right off the bat, I do just want to go over a couple of the inputs and outputs. We'll go over it more in detail later, but just know you have two main inputs. These both are XLR or quarter inch. And then you have four main outputs. You have two that are XLR, and then you have these two right here, which are quarter inch. I'll go over some more of these later. That's just what I want you to keep in mind as we're doing this initial programming. So for me, I'm going to do XLR out. I'm just going to do a single XLR out into my audio interface, and then I'm going to plug a wireless into the top up here, because if you've seen my channel before, you know how much I hate cables. Now, the first thing I recommend that you do when you get your Quad Cortex is to just go through some of the presets that you have. So you can make sure that you're in preset mode up here. You can either push this button to cycle through them. I will show you Stomp and Scene mode here in a little bit, but go to presets. The other way that you can change those is you can push these two buttons together, and you will also cycle through those modes. But go through presets and just play through some of the different ones that you like. You can change your presets by pushing any of these buttons, and you can switch up and down banks with the up and down buttons right here. And then find a patch that you like. I really like this one a lot. The other way that you can scroll through your presets is you can click up here under the name of it. You can go to your factory presets or your own presets. When you first get it, it will be blank. But go to factory presets and you can swipe through them, or you can go to different banks by clicking on the numbers and then choosing one of the ones that you want. So I'm going to go to this 1C patch, which is just a nice clean Fender type of amp. Mess around with your presets first. That's what I recommend. So next up, we're going to go through the signal chain. So for right now, just ignore this bottom row right here. We're going to focus just on the top section up here. This right here is going to be exactly like the order of using a traditional pedal board. Just in the same way with the traditional pedal board, you go one pedal at a time. That's the way that it's laid out on the Quad Cortex as well. So the first thing you want to do is see this block right here. It says in one. You can click that and you can set it to one of the different inputs if you want. So if you're using like a stereo input, you could set it to stereo input 1 and 2. But I am connected to input 1, so I'm going to assign that to input 1. Now the first pedal in your chain is going to be this one right here. This one, in this case, is a pitch shifter. You can see that the pitch shifter is grayed out right now, meaning that it's not enabled. So I can either click it and then push this button right here in order to turn it on. Or what I can also do is I can double tap it in order to turn it on. The pitch shifting in the Quad Cortex is quite incredible. You can see that I can make changes by just using the touchscreen and dragging it around. I've turned the pitch shifter off. Let's go ahead and check out this next effect right here. This is a compressor. So you can either turn it on or off. But you can also make changes to any of these parameters right here, just like you would on any traditional pedal. So if I want to change one of these, I have three different options. I can either click and drag, so I can change the ratio up and down like this. I can also tap right here, and I can input the value exactly. So if I want a 2-to-1 ratio, I can do that and confirm that. Or these knobs down here actually all twist. So you can see when I twist this one, this affects the threshold. When I twist this one, this affects the ratio. This one affects attack, release, mix, and so on and so forth. All of the lights that are lit up on the pedal board means that I can edit that parameter with one of the knobs, which is pretty cool. When I'm done, I can either push the check mark, or what I can do is I can just tap somewhere else and it will go away. So I can do the same thing on this modulation effect right here. Right now it's off. I'm going to enable it, and I can start making changes to it. Bring the mix all the way up, and the speed all the way up. and the depth all the way up just for a ridiculous sound. Obviously, that's pretty extreme. Remember, I'm not going for tone demos here. I'm just showing you how to use this. I'm going to turn that off now. And you do the same thing on all of the other blocks in here. You can also do the same thing on the amp. You get all of your different adjustments just like you would on a normal amp. Turn the bass down a little bit, adjust the output level, so on and so forth. You also can do the same thing on this cab block right here. I can click that. You can make changes to the cab. You can touch and move where the microphone is positioned on this cab emulator. You can change the type of microphone that is on the front of the cabinet. You can add some EQ and hit check mark when I'm done. You also can add a block. So there's no block right here. I'm just going to tap and it's going to say, what kind of block do you want to add? I have all these different options in here, so I can choose whatever I want to add. In this case, I want to add a delay, so I'm going to click delay, and these are the options that I have for delay effects. Some of them will have M and ST, so that's mono or stereo effects. I'm just running this in mono, so I'm going to choose one of my favorites, the tape delay in mono. And now I have a tape delay. I'm going to turn off these other delays and reverbs just so you can hear it. And again, tap it and start making some changes. If I want more feedback and more mix. Also, you can see that this one has a second page where I can turn on and off the trails if I want. Now, let's say I didn't like the sound of that delay. I can actually tap right here where it says tape delay, and it brings me right back up to this menu. So I can say, let's set it to a reverse delay instead, and confirm that. Now it's set to a reverse delay. And I could start making parameter changes that I want to. Or if I wanted to change it completely, I could also choose from one of the different types of effects. So let's say I wanted a distortion instead. So I can set it to a distortion patch. And now I can start making changes to this. I can also click this undo button if I'm not happy with that. So I can click undo. It'll undo the last thing that I did. So it brings back that delay, and I also have a redo button right here as well. Very helpful if you accidentally screw up something and you're not happy with what you did and can't remember what you did. You also can rearrange this. So I'm going to click and hold this, and you can see now I can move the delay up to this slot if I wanted it to, or I can move it down to this slot down here, or I can move it up to this path right here. I am going to show you these multiple paths a little bit later, so let me just go ahead and undo that and bring that back up here. Slide it back to where I had it, and also just keep in mind is that you can click and just delete a block as well by moving it up here. And now that block is gone. So now I'm happy with my setup. I have all of my blocks set up. Going from here, we got the input, we have all of the effects, the amp, the cab, and another effect. Now right here is our output block. So I can click that, and I can say, do I want this to run out multiple outputs? In that case, it would run to outputs 1 and 2, which are the XLR outputs, output 3 and 4, which are the 1/4 inch outputs, as well as the USB output. But I could say I just want to run that output 1 and 2 if I was doing a stereo setup. In my case, I'm actually just doing a mono setup, so I can actually scroll down here and I can say I just want to go output 1, which is how I'm doing this demo, XLR out, and going into my audio interface to record all the sounds. But the way that it's set up by default is you can see you can say go to row 3. So what this means, it's going to go in wherever I set my input, go through all of this. And then when it goes here, it says go to row 3, which is this row right here. So now I get access to all of these effects as well. So here's how my tone sounds right now. I'm going to turn off that reverse delay just for now. And I'm going to turn on these other effects that are down here. So there's a couple of different reverbs down here and also another delay with not a whole lot, but let me go ahead and turn that up. And do just keep in mind that changing the order of these effects, the more that you move it around, you will get different tones. Just in the same way with a traditional pedal board, when you're moving it around, the order of the effects going into another effect does change the tone. So now I've gone in, down to row 3, and I can also set my output here if I only wanted to route this to output 1 and 2, for example, or output 3 and 4, or just multiple outputs. When I'm happy with it, I can click the save icon up here. Now, if you're doing this with one of the factory presets, you can't actually override the factory presets, so you have to save it under the My Presets folder. So I'm just going to save it into this slot right here, and then you can actually give it a name. So I'm actually just going to call this one YouTube Demo, and then save it. It does have this preferred instrument, so I'm going to call this one for guitar, and then hit save. And now you can see that it is saved as YouTube Demo. And it's saved into slot 1A under the My Presets folder. So now if I start making changes, let's say I want to add a distortion effect right here. you'll see this asterisk symbol right next to the name. That means that something has changed. So if I wanted to save that again, I would hit save, and now it's saved this way. Or I could also click these three dots up here, and I can do save as and save it to a different slot if I wanted to, but I'm not going to do that. You also can just create a brand new blank preset if you want to start programming these yourself. All right, now all your pedals are changed, but when you play live, you want to be able to turn these on and off, right? So now we're going to assign each of these different blocks to these pedals down here. So you want to change from preset mode, you want to go over to stomp mode. You can either do that by clicking up here, or again, remember you can push these two buttons in order to scroll through the different modes. So stomp mode, you can see that some of these lights are lit up and some of them are a little bit more dim. So you can see that this G button right now is turning on and off this effect right here. And you can see that this one is turning on and off this reverb effect right here. So how do you assign those? C and D have no assignments. They don't do anything. Let's say that I want to assign this overdrive effect right here to the C button. See this little button right here that looks like a foot switch and has a question mark by it? I'm going to click that and it says push the target that you want to assign this to. I'm going to push the C button. And now you can see when I push C, it's going to turn on and off that overdrive effect. And it'll do that even if I move it around. It'll still turn it on and off. Now let's say I'm not really a fan of turning on and off this effect right here. I can click it. It's already assigned to the B button. I can click that and I can unassign it. Now the B button is not assigned to anything. And do keep in mind that you can use one of the buttons to turn on and off two different effects. So for example, let's say that I have two different amps in here. I have two different amps. And I always want them to switch between on and off. So I have this one on and this one off. I'm going to click right here. I'm going to assign this one to the B foot switch. Now I'm going to click this amp right here, and I'm also going to assign that to the B foot switch. Now B actually turns one on and turns one off as I push the button. So you can assign these stomps to turn on and off multiple effects at once. Something else you might have noticed, latching versus momentary. With latching, that means you push it, turns it on, push it again, and it turns it off. But I'm going to set it to momentary, and with momentary, I have to hold the button in order to turn it on, and then when I let go, it turns it back off. That's the difference with latching and momentary. Momentary is more for like special effects where you want just a quick effect to come in and then disappear when you let go with your foot. But most of the time, you're going to want latching. So now it's like a traditional pedal board. You can start turning on and off different effects. Turn on my distortion, turn off my distortion, turn on my pitch shifter, turn on my reverb, turn off my reverb, turn on my delay, and so on and so forth. When you're in stomp mode, that's more like a traditional pedal board. Here's all of your effects. Which ones do you want to turn on and off? Now you might be saying, well, I can't tell which one is which. They are color coded, so you can see that like orange is more of a distortion, blue is a modulation, and so on and so forth, but that doesn't really help much. What you actually can do is if you swipe up, you get to gig view. Now in gig view, you can actually see which effects turn on and off. You see that reverse delay is this one right here. And then this is your transpose and stuff like that. And also you can also rename these as well by clicking this little icon right here. So this one says multiple devices, so I'm just going to call this amps because I'm going to switch between the two amps. So now I know that switching between my two amps is this one right here. You can rename any of these that you want. So gig mode is definitely very helpful for performing live. It's easier to see this and go, oh, this is my transpose versus just the colors if you're in this mode. So swipe up in order to get to gig mode. Very helpful for performing live. Okay, so we've gone over stomp mode. And we've gone over preset mode. What about scenes? This is actually one of the most valuable ways to use the Quad Cortex, in my opinion. I do highly recommend that you at least experiment with this a little bit because it's quite amazing. So right now I'm in scene mode. I have 8 different scenes that I control with the foot switches. So remember, the foot switches will respond differently depending on which mode that you're in. If you're in preset mode, I'm going to start changing through different presets. When I'm in stomp mode, I can turn on and off individual effects. And when I'm in scene mode, I have 8 different scenes. I'm going to cycle through them, and you're going to see what's happening as I cycle through these. Do you see that multiple effects are turning on and off at once as I switch through these? So especially just going from like A to D, do you see how these 3 effects turn on and off all at once? So when you're in stomp mode, in order to do that, you would have to turn on and off 3 different effects at once. However, in scene mode, I can do all of that with one button press, which is very, very cool. But it also does more than that. So how do you set this up? In order to assign this, what you do, that's actually pretty easy to do. I'm going to click this transpose block, and right here on the power button, I'm going to hold it, and you're going to see this 4 square icon show up. That means that I want this parameter, in this case, the on and off button, to be affected by the different scenes. Might be a little bit confusing, but let me show you. On scene A, I want to have it off. I'm going to go over to scene B, and I want it to be on. Go over to scene C, I want to have it off, and then on scene D, I want to have it on. So now watch, as I switch through my scenes, scene A, it's off, B, it's on, C, it's off, and then D, it's on. So just an extreme example, on the A scene, I want every single effect to be off, except for the amp and cabs. So I'm going to click right here. If you use some of the factory presets, you'll notice some of these are already enabled. I'm going to go to scene A, and I'm going to turn it off. I'm also going to go to this one, scene A, it is off. I'm going to go to this one. You can see that I do not have that square next to it, so I need to hold this until that little square shows up. And on scene A, I want to have that off. I'm going to do that on all of these really quick, and I'll come back when this is done. So on scene A, I want to have everything off except for the 2 effects and then the looper. But then on scene B, what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign all of these to turn on scene B. I'm going to go to B, make sure that it's enabled. On the compressor on scene B, I want to have it enabled. This is also something I'm going to do off screen. I'm going to set all of the blocks to be enabled on scene B. So now when I switch from A, all of those pedals turn off. And when I switch to B, all of those effects come on. And then I've already programmed C so that half of them are on and half of them are off. All effects off, all effects on, and half of them on and off. That is not easy to do in Stomp mode. In Stomp mode, you'd have to push 6 different buttons in order to turn all of them on and all of them off. That's the power of scenes. However, what you also can do is you can also change any of the parameters as well. So remember, you can hold this. That little square shows up, which means that it will be affected by scene changes. I'm going to go ahead and assign all of these parameters to do that. I'm going to go to scene B. I'm going to bring the overdrive down, the tone up, and the level down just a little bit. I'm going to go over to scene C. On that one, I want the opposite. I want the overdrive to come up and the tone to come down and the level to come up, for example. So when I switch from scene A, everything's off. B, it turns it on and changes all of the parameters in here. And then C has it on and also changes all of the parameters in here as well. Do you see how powerful that is? I'm going to actually load up one of my main presets that I programmed in here. And you can see as I change through scenes, this is just my amp settings. You can see all of these change. Watch what happens when I switch through these scenes. So scene E, it's off. When I go to scene F, you can see all the parameters change. When I go to scene G, you can see all the parameters change again. So this is just a basic overview of how I use scenes. So this is my clean, this is a slight overdrive, this is a distortion, and then this is a lead. So on clean, my crunch channel is off because I actually switch between 2 amps. But when I go to an overdrive, my gain's at 3. When I want distortion, the gain comes all the way up. And then when I want to lead, I have the same sound, but I bring up the master and the presence come up just a little bit. And I add a little bit more distortion before the amp as well. Do you see how powerful this is? I can turn on and off any block as well as change any of the parameters on any of the blocks using scenes. And yes, when you swipe up to go to gig view, you can still see your scenes on the Quad Cortex and you can rename them as you would like as well, just like we did with Stomp mode. If you're more of a beginner going into digital amp modeling world, Stomp mode might make sense because that's very, very similar, just turning on and off different pedals like you're used to. But scenes are one of the most powerful ways to use this. For example, the way that I use it, this is my clean tone, this is a slight overdrive, this is a distortion, and then this is my lead tone. You could also use it as like verse, chorus, bridge, solo, or something like that. It's definitely very powerful, and I definitely recommend that you explore scenes and programming them that way. And on top of that, there's an even more advanced mode that's really cool in here. So we have scene, preset, and Stomp mode. What you can actually do is you can actually hold it, and you get to this page right here. So first of all, you can change the cycle. So when you push the two buttons, it'll go from stomp to scene to preset. If I never want to go to preset, I can actually just drag and delete that if I wanted to. I'm not going to, but I could also reorder this and put it into a different order. However, one of the things that's even more powerful about this is that you can actually combine the two. If I wanted to combine scenes and stomp, I can put them over on top of each other. And you can see now I have 4 scenes on the top and 4 stomps on the bottom. I can click right here and reverse those. And now I have 4 stomp effects on the top and 4 scenes on the bottom. So now on this bottom row, I can go to scene E, scene F, G, and H. But let's say on the E scene, I actually don't want this reverb. I could turn that reverb off, and I can turn this distortion on. Now I can go to this scene and then start turning on and off individual effects if I wanted to as well. So I would have 4 scenes on the bottom and 4 stomps on the top. Very powerful to have that hybrid setting in here. And if you ever wanted to get rid of them, just hold it and it will go back to normal. And remember, you can also do that with presets and stomp as well, or scenes and presets. You just drag them on top of each other and then choose, do you want scenes on top and presets on the bottom, or click it and put presets on top and scenes on the bottom. A little bit more advanced, but very, very powerful. Okay, now remember one of the inputs that's up here, we also have 2 different inputs for expression pedals. So you can actually assign this to be controlled with expression pedals. So I'm going to plug into expression pedal input 1, and I'm going to plug that into this super cheap expression pedal that I have. The Mission Engineering one actually pairs really well with the Quad Cortex. They sell it on Sweetwater. I'll link to that down below if you're interested in an expression pedal that works really well with the Quad Cortex. I'm going to go ahead and go back to our YouTube demo preset. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this reverb, and I want to assign this to control how much of the mix of the reverb I want to change. The way that you do that is you click these 3 dots right here, and you can see assign expression pedal. Now they make this really easy. Choose the expression input, expression 1 or expression 2. I'm choosing expression 1, and I want to assign the mix. So I'm going to assign that. So now the mix of this effect is assigned to expression 1. And you can see as I move this, you can see that the mix goes up and down. So all the way back is no reverb. Turn it up and you have a ton of reverb. And somewhere in the middle. Right? I'm going to go back to that assign expression pedal, and I can choose the minimum range and the maximum range that goes to. So now when the expression pedal is all the way back, it only goes to 33, and when I push the expression pedal all the way down, it only goes to 59. It's a little bit off because this one is super cheap. If you want it to go from 0 to 100, you would set it to 0 to 100, but most of the time you want to set a different range in here. And do keep in mind, you can change multiple ones at once. So let me just assign basically all 5 of these. And now you can see when I move the expression pedal, it changes all of those parameters. Pretty drastic change, but you can see that all of these parameters are changing when I move the expression pedal. So expression pedals are not just for wah and volume, even though those are some of the main features of it. This can be used to control other effects as well, which is very, very cool. So something that's really cool about the Quad Cortex is you can actually use some of Neural DSP plugins with the Quad Cortex. Not all of them, but some of them, and there are a few ways that you can get those onto your Quad Cortex. So click these 3 dots over here, and then you want to go under your settings. You want to go up to connection, and you want to connect to your Wi-Fi network. Just click the network when you see it and type in your password and you'll be connected. Then you want to go up here to my account and log in to your Neural DSP account. Again, all of this is pretty standard. I've already done this. Now you're going to click up here. You want to click presets, and here you're going to go to plugin presets. As the time shooting, you can see that these are the 4 that are available. If you haven't bought them, they will be grayed out. But if you have bought them, like I have with the Pliny X, you can see that I have access to the Pliny X plugin in my Quad Cortex. This is one of my favorite ones. Robia did a great job with this thick, bitey crunch tone. I love this tone. Really nice tone, and now we have access to that. So here's the intro to Electric Sunrise. Great song. Check out Pliny if you haven't. He's a phenomenal artist. But now you have access to that plugin, and you can use it on your Quad Cortex, which is really awesome. I do highly recommend the Pliny X plugin. It is my favorite plugin, amp modeler, just in general. And you can see that my main preset is actually based off of the Pliny amps. The Pliny amp, Pliny drive, Pliny compression, delay, reverb. My main patch that I use is based off of the Pliny X plugin. One of the things that's really powerful about the Quad Cortex is you can also import third-party impulse responses into this, and here's how you do that. You want to go to neuraldsp.com and go to Cortex Cloud. Once you're here, go to My Profile, and then click Impulse Responses. This is where you're going to drag in your impulse responses. I have one dragged in already, but I'm going to drag in multiple other ones and hit Save. And you can see that these are now in my Cortex Cloud account on my computer. Once all of that is loaded to the cloud, you're going to click up here. And instead of going to presets, you want to switch that to impulse responses. So you can see I only have one currently in here, but I can click on Cloud Impulse Responses. And you'll see all those ones that I just imported. To download to the Quad Cortex, you just click the download button, and you can see that they start to download. Now to use those impulse responses, you could click just a blank spot and choose Impulse Response Loader. You have a couple of different options here, but I'm just going to choose just a dual mono. Click the block, choose IR file, and then choose whichever one you want to use. So I'm going to choose this one, for example. Remember, this is a dual one, so I can choose two different ones and then make all of these changes just as normal like you would with any of the other blocks. The other option that you have for this, let me go ahead and just remove this one, is under the cabs. You can actually click the cab and see where the microphone is. If you click right there, it brings up this impulse response loader. You can click that and then choose one of your impulse responses as well. And that's how you import third-party impulse responses onto the Quad Cortex. There also is a whole cloud of presets that people have uploaded to the cloud that you can download onto your Quad Cortex. You can do that from the website as well as from the app. Just for variety's sake, I'm going to show you how you can do this with the app. So download the Cortex Cloud app, find some patches that you like, and then click the download icon next to them. I'm going to do that for a couple of different patches in here just as an example. And then once you have those downloaded, it's very similar to the impulse responses. Instead of going to your presets up here, you go to your downloads, and you can see that these are the patches that I've downloaded. So if I want that Corey Wong clean preset, I would click this one, choose where I want to save it. So let's save it to 2C, and then here's that Nolly preset. I'm going to save that to 2D. And let's say I changed my mind, I wanted to delete this one. Now you can see under my presets, they have saved. So now we have the Corey Wong clean rig. A couple more settings to know about. You can hold this button right here and you can get to your tuner. Really nice tuner, nice large screen. You also do have a tap tempo, so that same button can be used to tap the tempo in. There is also an input noise gate. So right here at the beginning, instead of tapping, if you actually hold it, you can see that there is a noise gate right here. You can have that off if you want, or turn it on and choose how much noise reduction you would like. Especially if you're doing heavy tones, you definitely need that enabled. There is also the send and return ports up here. You have send 1 and 2 and return 1 and 2. This can be useful if you want to use other pedals in addition to your Quad Cortex. Remember, think about your signal chain. So let's just say right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click add a new block, and I'm actually going to do an effects loop right here. So I can do just send and just return if you wanted to. That's a bit more advanced, but I can also just choose effect loop 1. So now what's going to happen is it's going to go through this signal path right here, just hit this part, and it's going to go out the send port and then come back in from the return port and continue across the signal chain. But remember, you can set that to just go out send 1. So from here, it will send out output 1, and then you could choose return 1 right here. So it will go through here, send, basically skip all of this, and then return here. I don't know why you would do that, but I'm just showing you an example of how you can use the effect, send, and return ports. But I do also want you to just keep in mind, let me go ahead and remove this, is that in the inputs, you also have return input 1 and 2 as an input port, and for outputs, you also have send 1 and 2. So technically, you have a total of 4 inputs and 6 outputs on the Quad Cortex. And that's not even counting USB. That's pretty powerful. I told you I would go over the second path. Well, something else you can actually do is you see this blank spot right here. I'm actually going, instead of tapping, I'm going to hold it. And you can see that I have this splitter and merge point right here. So you actually have this setting right here, where if I want to split the signal two separate paths, so I'm still going to come in on input 1, but I'm going to go out two separate outputs, and I can move this over here, and I would still go through the amp modeling, and I would route that out to front of house, out the XLR outputs. But then with this one, I want to go into like my own cab or something like that, and I would route that out the 1/4 inch output. The guitar hits all of this, and then it splits. This goes to front house with the cab emulation, and then this goes out to my own cab. That can be definitely very helpful. But there's also this split and merge, where you want it to split off and then come back together. So this can be actually helpful for something like this. The signal will go through here, it will split to these two sections, and then join back together to go out output 1. So in this case, I could have two separate amps and two separate cabs. So this would be like a dual amp and cab type of setup. Your guitar basically goes through all of your effects, and then goes into these two amp and cabs separately, and still goes out output 1. I'm going to route that back to row 3, because there's actually one more way that I want to show you how you might use this. You see how I have these two reverbs right here? What I could do is I can click and drag and bring this down here and move this split point and merge point. So now instead of two reverbs hitting each other, it hits two reverbs separately and then continues across with those two tones. You really just want to mess around with this and listen to it. Always trust your ear with anything tone related, but it is definitely a very helpful tool to split the signal, either for multiple routing or just for dialing in your tone. Here's some more options of what you can do with your multiple paths. What I can do on this 4th row, I can click on the input, and I say I want what's ever plugged into input 2. So if I have a bass guitar or an acoustic guitar or a second guitar, you can run two guitar rigs off of this setup. Input 2, and then I'm going to route those out just output 2. And I'm going to change this one to just go out output 1. This is a little bit more advanced, but now what I've said is what comes in on input 1 is going to go through all of this and then go out output 1. And then here on input 2, let me just add an amp and a cab just for right now, just as an example. But now whatever guitar or bass that I have plugged into input 2 is going to run through this signal chain and then out output 2. So I can process two separate instruments with this. Again, that's a little bit more advanced, but again, I'm just showing you the power of this thing. Set your inputs, set up your signal chain, and choose where you want the output to go. You also have input-output settings. So remember how you swipe up to get to gig view? Well, if you swipe down, you actually get to all of your input-output settings. So I can click on input 1. If my signal is too quiet or too loud, I can adjust that here. Remember, you can change it with these knobs over here as well. The Quad Cortex is extremely powerful, so I could set input 1 to a mic and then input 2 to an instrument. So I could process my vocals and my guitar separately through the Quad Cortex, which is really cool. I can choose the level of outputs 3 and 4. I can set those separately if I wanted to. You can also double click just to reset it. Same with my XLR outs and so on and so forth. There also is a global EQ setting here as well. And then last but not least, if you do want to update the firmware, when they come out with new firmware, settings, device options, device update. There's quite a bit more that the Quad Cortex can do, but hopefully this is giving you enough in order to get started on your journey using the Quad Cortex. The Quad Cortex is unbelievably powerful, and hopefully that's enough to get you started. Obviously, I wasn't able to cover everything in this video. The video is already long enough, but this covered quite a bit of it. There are three main things that I didn't really go over. I didn't go over the neural capture, and the neural capture is pretty amazing because you can capture your own tones and put them into the Quad Cortex. Very powerful stuff. I'll leave a link down below to a video going over that. I also didn't really mention using it with USB because you can connect this via USB and you can use it either as like an audio interface or also even for reamping as well, which is pretty cool. I'll leave links down below to a video about that as well. And also I didn't really go over any of the MIDI programming because you can control your Quad Cortex with MIDI. If you do want a dedicated video on that topic, let me know down in the comment section. I will also link down below to some of the accessories that Sweetwater sells for the Quad Cortex. There is a cover that goes over the top of it by Deck Saver. It is pretty cool. I have that myself. Definitely a good way to protect your Quad Cortex. And they also do sell a gig bag as well as a hard case and a larger hard case. I did actually get this hard case right here. It fits it perfectly like a glove. It is great for the Quad Cortex. Obviously, if you plan to have it on a pedal board, you'll need something slightly different. I'll also link to some of those down below where you can get them on Sweetwater as well. That case fits perfectly for my needs personally. And also, if you do want an expression pedal, I highly recommend that Mission Engineering expression pedal. Mission Engineering makes some great stuff. Check out that one if you are interested in an expression pedal. But again, many thanks to Sweetwater for sponsoring the video. If you guys are still here, I'm assuming that means you found the video helpful. Do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button. It truly does help out the channel, and it'll help recommend this video to more people, so I would appreciate it. Also, if you are interested in a video on the Nano Cortex, if you are interested in a video on that, leave a comment down below as well. I do have a video going over why I sold all my guitar amps. I actually went fully digital, and what's one of the things that I love is I can gig with literally just the Quad Cortex because it's so powerful. If you do want to see my reasoning for getting rid of all my amps, check out that video, and you can also check out my most recent video by clicking the links on your screen now. Thank you guys again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to follow me on my social media pages at Scott Yule Music. Once again, many thanks to Sweetwater for sponsoring the video. Leave a comment down below if there's any other cool gear you want me to check out or do a video on. Thank you guys again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.